I've always talked about critical thinking for some time now. I think I started talking about it in 2000 and mid 2000s. And it is a skill that is crucial for being a more conscious person, a more evolved person. Of course, it can be counteracted uh, by being a person who's psychopathic or doesn't have empathy. But overall, critical thinking will even help those types to understand the world around you. So I always talk about it, and I grew up in a very uh, crass, kind of uneducated, not a very critical thinking household. But I was always naturally a critical thinking child. I would walk by myself, not a good idea, before the age of 13, 14, to the library, which was like a couple miles away in a not so good part of California, to check out books on my own, and read them. And when I say books, I mean stacks of books that were appropriate for my age at the time, like Nancy Drew, Encyclopedia Brown. I know there were like tons of other books. I can't remember what they were now, but I would go up to, I remember going up to the librarian and checking them out, and she'd look at me funny because I'd have stacks, and then I'd come back like less than a week later and check out another stack of books. And I think she gave me a peculiar look because I was there alone and I was checking out so many books. And you know, I've always just been that kid, smart on my own, but without the support and the guidance, obviously couldn't reach my potential. And in addition to that, gang stalking stacked on top of all of that. So, anyways, critical thinking is what happens over a period of time. And I will try to explain it in an obviously not in a professional way because I'm not capable of that, but more in my own style, which is meandering and storytelling, which might be better for those who don't have critical thinking skills anyway. And I did not have critical thinking skills. I had like a rough, inherent talent for wanting to learn. But what that looks like is uh, critical thinking doesn't sound like what it sounds like. Critical sounds like you're being critical, or you're criticizing. It has nothing to do with that. Just excise that out of what you think critical thinking is. Doesn't mean that at all. I wish they could change critical thinking, the word, into something else, but obviously that's impossible. Um, but it essentially means that when information is presented to you, you don't swallow it whole, and you have these extra skills to be able to deconstruct that information in such a way that you can better get at the truth. So, and it's not something that comes naturally. It's not something you get from naturally. It is something that is taught. Period. Period. You know, taught from your parents, taught from teachers, and taught from mentors, um, working. So, to give you an example, when I first started going to school at a community college before I transferred into a top public university, I didn't know how to write academically. And when you write academically, it's a certain kind of writing that comes with repetition and lots of reading and lots of studying on how to write in such a way that supports an argument, but in an academic way. So it excludes a lot of verbiage that sounds circular, that excludes a lot of verbiage that doesn't support the thesis, the main idea of what you're writing or saying. It's very organized. So even if you have like a 20 page, 50 page, or 100 page, or a book, whatever you're writing to is kind of writing to that main thesis, that main point that you're trying to make. But the way it's laid out is done in such a way that each paragraph, each sentence, adheres to that topic, and systematically. It's something easy to do once you learn it, but I remember paying like 6 or 7 different tutors and realizing, and not realizing, and they, all of them except for one, didn't know how to write academically. They, all of everything they wrote on Craigslist or wherever I found them, said that they were the best tutor ever, and they got straight A's and whatnot at Dartmouth. Oh, I remember this one Dartmouth tutor who was just a moron. He couldn't teach for shit. So, as some people know out there, people will say they have the skills to teach or have some sort of skill, and they do not have it at all. And I finally found this one guy who was like, well, this is what we need to do. This is what academic writing is. And let me explain it step by step. And the topic sentences would sound like this. And this is an example. Just a good teacher, as well as clearly knowledgeable in how to teach academic writing. So that's what critical thinking is. It's all these tiny little components that come together in your skill set of thinking, of how to think, that helps you get to a piece of knowledge clearly. And it's hard to describe, and I'm not a good teacher. I'm a good teacher with certain things, but not this, especially during this time when I am so stressed out and my brain is not my own. And the way that I would normally come to explaining something is with time and revision and much thought put into it and much practice. And I'm not going to do that. I'm just not able to do that today. But I always talk about critical thinking. So, as I studied, typical, very, general education studies, psychology 101, philosophy, physical anthropology, English, reading books, all these different classics. These things do bolster the processing speed of your mind power, but they also help with your critical thinking. Not so much the hard sciences, but reading and writing and the liberal arts help with critical thinking. So let me give you an example of critical thinking. So when during this gang stalking period, I have been bombarded with so much bullshit. And I'm not saying this is bullshit, but I'm saying one of the suggestions, I'll say, that was given to me to improve my life was these Orgonite, I don't know, little Orgonite things. I don't know what to call them, actually. They're Orgonite pieces. They're Orgonite little, they're about, the size of your palm, 3 or 4, I don't know how much they weigh. They're like about, 10 ounces, and they're made, you can go look it up. I'm not going to explain it. Orgonite items. And so gang stalking maggots, that would be you, proposed to me that I should make Orgonite, or that I should buy Orgonite because it absorbs radiation, or it does. Just go look it up, whatever their claims were. Now, a non-critical thinking person will go and I'm guessing here because I am no longer a non-critical thinking person. I'm not the best critical thinking person, but I'm certainly not a non-critical thinking person, if these are even words. Will start looking at websites, YouTube videos, Wikipedia. They might even find some kind of obscure source where it says that Orgonite is able to accomplish all of these wonderful health benefits. I'm not going to expound on everything that you can Google about how great Orgonite is. You can do that in a second, and find out all of the claims that are made by it. And by the way, made by hippie type, poorly made, poorly written, poorly verbally spoken videos, by the way, like 99%. This is the maggot world, by the way, your world, and non-critical thinking world. And so hopefully we can get to it. I know you're so upset that I have to call you a maggot. You're not humans, so whatever. So these website after website, YouTube video, elaborate rabbit holes that you can go down that say Orgonite is this, Orgonite is that. This guy's the Orgonite creator, I forget his name now, his papers were burned and he was killed, and that's enough for me to know that Orgonite is good. These are not facts. especially now, as you maggots keep telling me, in a world where facts are all hidden from us. So that's the critical thinking comes in where you go, wow, this looks really real, but here's why I'm not sure about this. Here's how I'm this is the critical thinking is about how you come to knowledge. You start thinking, well, these websites, they don't look official. Or I'm just going to start with the websites. The websites are not official. These are personal websites by personal people. What are the what do these people? What kind of credentials do they have? Do they have any credentials? Can I trust that these credentials are real? The people and who say that their credentials are this PhD that, when I see their writing and I hear them speak, it does not match. And the way that for those that are not critical thinkers, or you don't know what critical, actually, and I'm not trying to put you down, for those that don't know exactly what critical thinking is, because if you have some critical thinking skills, you will know what it is. Or thought that critical thinking meant you're criticizing or you're a critical person. The videos that you watch where the person is kind of not making sense to you because they're speaking in a more complicated fashion, that means that it's more credible to you. For you people, that means it's a little bit more credible, because at least they can speak well, they can formulate sentences well, they can formulate their arguments well, they can write well. I'm not saying that it's proof. I'm just saying that they may be a little bit more educated than those that are talking with slang or with gifs, or who are saying yo, or for some of you maggots who think that someone's more classy if they don't cuss. Okay, for some people that are not saying fuck and shit every other two lines, but I don't think that's quite right. I mean, I think George Carlin is a genius and was, speaking a lot of truth, and I don't think he's not as classy. As a matter of fact, I think he's much more classy than the vast majority of you maggots. So cussing is not it. Cussing is not it. That's like a delusional thing that you maggots have in your brains while you torture people. So anyway, so you're on this website, no credentials, poor writing. Then you move on to Wikipedia. Well, Wikipedia is completely controlled by corporations. All the media outlets are all like condensed and concentrated. I can't really trust Wikipedia. Ultimately, though, when you look at it, you're reading it and you're trying to cross-reference what it's saying with your own knowledge base, whatever it may have, and you have to make sure your knowledge base is it reliable. For instance, do you have a background in science? Do you have a background in engineering? Do you have a background in sounds and RF and EMFs? Do you have a background in any of that? So when you're bouncing that information off of what you know, can you really be intellectually honest and say, I know this because I have worked in this field and I have a PhD or two PhDs or a doctor, whatever, and I have seen this proven out. So that's so you're making these assumptions, you're bouncing it off of your frame of reference of what you know. So Wikipedia, okay, you can't really trust Wikipedia, obviously. Then you go on to other things, like maybe your knowledge. A lot of these Orgonite people believe in crystals. So crystals, do you have any proof that crystals actually remove radiation or improve fields? Now, this is going to be contentious, especially for you hippies, but I'd say the vast majority of you guys do not have any proof. Excuse me for one moment. Let me repeat that. You do not have any proof. Unless you're married to a scientist who has a lot of equipment and you have been in his lab and you can see the results, or you know someone who is highly educated and you can trust them 100%. Even then, I mean, you don't know. So unless you have concrete proof like that, where you are in the know and you have connections with people and you can back it up, because I won't believe you if I don't see it myself, or I don't see it backed up in such a way that it's irrefutable. I would have to see it with my own eyes at this point in this gang stalking world. But then you don't really know, because you read something in a book or 10 books that say crystals have all this power. you need to have anecdotes, real verifiable anecdotes, and then those anecdotes have to have very verifiable anecdotes with something else. And it's sort of like how a theory comes about. A theory doesn't mean some idea that popped into your head. A theory, in very brief, means that a scientist came up with an idea, a hypothesis, and he wants to prove it. And he goes through just tons of actual physical experiments to see if his hypothetical idea is true. And you do it over 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 until you finally prove, well, I've done this experiment so many times and it keeps turning out the same way, so this must be true. And it's done under highly pinpointed, specific, unique circumstances where all other outside influences are taken away from the equation. So there's not like anything affecting that end experiment. So, it's that kind of thinking. It's very layered. It's very deep. You're always questioning. You're always doubting. You're always skeptical. Doesn't mean that you're a skeptical person. Being a skeptical person doesn't mean you're like this negative person that doesn't believe in anything. That's what education is. You have to be open. Like you tell me to be open. Skepticism basically means you're not going to believe anything that's told to you. You're not born yet. Like for you, MAGA right-wing dum-dums, doesn't mean that you believe. It's like when you say things like I wasn't born yesterday, or I'm no spring chicken, or whatever. It just basically means that you are going to come to knowledge in a way where you're going to look at every single piece of evidence you can, including your own knowledge. And then after all of that, after being skeptical and looking at all of your knowledge and being really intellectually honest, going back point by point, you then come to your conclusion, which is based on what I've read on Orgonite, that I have looked, the only piece of evidence, the only information that I have received Orgonite on is through the computer. Or I went to the public library and I read something on Orgonite that was published 10 years ago. Or this hippie person who's never had any scientific background, who swears by it because it gives her these boom, 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 these results. She knows that's my evidence, or whatever it is. That's not evidence. Her saying I swear, that's confirmation bias. So critical thinking is being really intellectually honest, and it helps you decipher what's real and not. It helps you, let me rephrase that. It helps you decipher information coming to you in such a way that you will not accept it 100%. And being intellectually honest means that you're going to do that with every idea and every supposition and everything that's put before you, including religion. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with questioning someone coming to you and saying, hey, this new face cream will get rid of your wrinkles in 3 months, and that deep crevice that you have between your eyeballs and on your mouth are going to be gone. There's nothing wrong with going, hey, I'm a little bit skeptical. How do I know you're telling the truth? And then from there, diving into the rabbit hole. Well, let me see. Do you have any testimonials? Can you show me some before and afters? Do you have like a 60-day money back guarantee? Yada, yada, yada. That's being skeptical. As simple as that. As simple as reading an advertisement that says, come down to the, used car lot and, we'll give you 20% off because it's the year-end sale and you'll get these great cars that are completely wonderful and run one. You're going to be like, yeah, right. That's skeptical. You're going to take that philosophy and you're going to apply that to everything. Why shouldn't you apply that to everything? As long as you are good-natured about it, you don't have to worry about being nice or anything. You just say why. Just use open-ended questions. How? What? When? Why? These are things that are what makes a critical thinking person. And I'm simplifying it so much because it's much more than that. And once you get to that place, it's like the world opens up to you. I don't know how to explain it. You just are not working on an unconscious level as much anymore. And you need to do that with religion. You need to do that with religion because it is a major idea that has caused problems in this world for thousands of years and is divisive and hateful. I don't care what you say. I have my proof right here. The majority of you that are doing this to me are Christians, Muslims, and Jews. And as far as I know atheists don't do this shit. They don't. They don't care. They're just not like this naturally. There's always exceptions to the rule. So, critical thinking. The way you can help your critical thinking is, let me give you an example. The last example. I'm sure many of you have seen the movie Arrival. Arrival with I forget the titles of the two characters in there. The guy that was in Avengers and the girl that was in Superman, the redhead. And in the movie, spoilers ahead. So if you want to not hear the spoiler about this wonderful movie, pause now and skip forward about 5 minutes. She basically meets these aliens who want her help. In the beginning of the movie, they don't tell her they need her help. They just try to communicate with her with this ink blot messaging type of language. And over time, she comes to understand the language. It's not any language you've ever seen before. If you watch the movie, you'll see. And so as she comes to understand this language, this ink blot language, and for those that have watched the movie, you know what I'm talking about, her mind begins to work in a different way. Now, this is, of course, a movie. It's science fiction. But I'm trying to give you an analogy that works, that make popular culture analogy that helps you understand versus my ramblings. So in this movie, she's learning this language of these aliens, and slowly over time, she starts evolving, right? She starts having skills that she did not have before. And at the end of the movie, her mind has evolved in such a way that she can her time is no longer linear for her. And that was all due to the fact, according to the movie, this is not science, I wouldn't be surprised if it was though, according to the fact that because she learned this new language that made her brain work in a certain way to create new neural pathways, she was able to access a skill, a talent, an ability to have insight into the way the world works, into time and space itself, that she did not before, simply because she learned a new language. Now, I do recall something being written, I don't remember where, about how learning different languages affects the brain in a certain way. But that's how I see critical thinking. That is, in some ways, it's very much like critical thinking, where once you learn it, there's no going back. It's like your mind, your mind cherry has been popped, and there's just, once your cherry's been popped, you can't go back. And you start seeing everything in a new light, in no longer that ignorant light where you're just, whatever is told to you, you believe. Whatever is told to you, you're not afraid to think. You know that being afraid to think and afraid to doubt and afraid to be skeptical about an idea is dangerous. It is literally dangerous. Anyone that's telling you or cutting you off or telling you don't think, no, you cannot doubt. You cannot doubt this one idea. It is not allowed. Or they're saying something like, everything else is okay for you to doubt, but this one philosophy, this one idea is off limits. That is counterintuitive to progressive forward thinking. It's counterintuitive to being more evolved. So the best thing you can do to get on the path of critical thinking, I would say, is take a community college class or take a small business administration class. Sometimes they give these classes for free. More small business administration, they usually do like marketing classes, not writing classes. There's so many writing classes now. Start small, English 101, read some classics, things like that, or even take like a writing class. That's not really like critical thinking though. The best critical thinking class that I can think of in a short amount of time, because this video is 24 minutes long, that I can suggest is a philosophy class, period. Philosophy class. You can take them at the community college. If you don't make a lot of money, you can get a fee waiver. The books will be the most expensive thing you pay for, unfortunately, but you can get a used one for less, not much less, because that's a whole corporate, monopoly. So take a philosophy class, take a physical anthropology class, take an English class, a critical thinking English class. I don't know if those exist. Take a class, a liberal arts class that is made to make you think. Sometimes they'll be labeled that way, but I doubt it, especially in community college. In college, there are critical thinking majors that the entire time you're going, you're building that muscle. So, anyways, that's my really bad. I can tell I've missed so many good points that I could have made. Way of explaining what critical thinking is. It's not critical, as in you're being a critical person. It means that you're looking at facts in such a way that is deeper. And so that helps you understand knowledge better and where that knowledge came from, that helps you formulate a more, it helps you with the truth. It doesn't necessarily help you get to the truth, but it helps you understand and decipher much better the knowledge coming your way.